when a ruthless motorcyclist kicked a homeless man's dog in a supermarket parking lot. He had no idea that Jackie Chan was watching. What seemed like just another ordinary day, marked by society's indifference, quickly turned into an unforgettable event. Something cruel was about to happen, but by a stroke of fate, someone would appear at just the right time and in just the right place to change everything. Before we dive into this story, tell us, where are you watching from? Write your city or country in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow we'll have another exciting story made especially for you. The supermarket parking lot followed its usual routine. Trolleys creaked as people, engrossed in their work, tried to complete their daily tasks. In a far corner, almost invisible to most, a homeless man was sitting on the ground. He was holding a worn piece of cardboard that read, "Help me and my best friend." Next to him, a dog with a stained coat was lying down, observing his surroundings with an attentive but serene gaze. From time to time, the man reached out to stroke the animal, which responded with a slight wag of its tail, a simple gesture, but one full of complicity. The bond between them went beyond words. A few weeks earlier, on one of the coldest and loneliest nights of his life, the man thought he wouldn't live to see the dawn. Without shelter, burning up with fever and consumed by fatigue, he stayed in that same place, almost giving up. Then, as if by a small miracle, the dog appeared. He didn't bark, he didn't make a fuss, he just lay down next to the man, warming him with his own body. His mere presence seemed to say, "You're not alone." When the sun rose that morning, the fever had subsided, and the man felt that something inside him had changed. From that day on, they became inseparable. The dog wasn't just a companion, it was his reason for moving on. And there they were, in that isolated corner, going about their silent routine, while the world around them remained indifferent. Until, suddenly, something unexpected was about to happen. The thunderous roar of a motorcycle echoed through the parking lot, drawing the attention of everyone around. The vehicle stopped abruptly, its engine still roaring loudly, as if announcing a hostile presence. The atmosphere changed. Something heavy, something cruel was approaching. The fragile bubble of tranquility in that corner was about to be destroyed. The engine fell silent, but left behind a palpable tension like a storm about to break. The man who got off the bike was tall and robust, wearing a worn leather jacket and heavy boots that echoed against the asphalt. He removed his helmet, revealing a weather-hardened face and a cold smile that promised nothing good. His eyes scanned the parking lot until they settled on the discreet corner where the man and his dog were standing. The motorcyclist began to walk slowly, each step echoing like a countdown. He seemed to delight in the discomfort he caused, noticing how the people around him looked away to avoid him. When he was a few meters from the man, he stopped, tilted his head and let out a dry laugh. Well, look at the spectacle we have here." His voice was full of contempt. "A beggar and his mongrel. I bet that dog is worth more than you." The man sitting on the ground raised his eyes for a brief moment, but then lowered them again, avoiding any confrontation. His trembling fingers gripped the piece of cardboard even tighter. Next to him, the dog let out a low growl, instinctively putting itself between the motorcyclist and its owner. "What's the matter, dog?" taunted the man in leather, leaning in slightly as if to speak directly to the animal. "Are you going to bite me? Are you going to defend this piece of garbage you call an owner? I bet you're the only one who cares about him. Please just leave us alone," muttered the homeless man, his voice almost inaudible, filled with despair. He reached out, holding the dog as if he could protect it. "Leave you alone?" The motorcyclist laughed again, taking a step forward. "You two shouldn't even be here. This is a parking lot, not a dump. People like you only get in the way of people who are trying to make a real living." The man tried to reply, but the words seemed to get lost in his throat. He lowered his head, stroking the dog, which was now baring its teeth in a clear sign of defense. This only served to inflame the biker's rage even more. "Look at that, he thinks he can scare me," he sneered, staring at the dog. "I bet he can't even bark properly. A failure of an animal, just like its owner." He raised his foot, pretending to kick the dog. The dog instinctively backed away, and the man let out a distressed cry, "No. Please don't hurt him." The biker straightened up, laughing once again. "Don't hurt him? Maybe you should teach this mongrel to respect who's in charge around here." The atmosphere became even heavier. The biker's expression became even crueler. He took another step, his shadow now completely engulfing the man and his dog. The smile on his face indicated that he was about to act. "That's enough." The firm voice cut through the air like a sharp blade. Instantly, everyone in the parking lot froze. Their gazes turned to the approaching figure. The calmness in his gait concealed something powerful, and in that instant, fate began to take an unexpected turn. The authoritative tone reverberated through the parking lot, bringing with it an abrupt silence. People who had previously ignored the scene now searched with their eyes for the source of that unexpected show of authority. The motorcyclist turned abruptly, his expression of contempt giving way to irritated curiosity. He squinted his eyes, trying to identify who dared to intrude. Between the rows of cars, a man walked with calm but purposeful steps. It was impossible not to recognize that face, unmistakable even to those who didn't follow cinema. Jackie Chan. He was dressed simply, comfortable pants, a dark t-shirt and a light jacket. His steps were calculated, his expression serious but not aggressive. When he stopped a few meters from the scene, he looked up and faced the motorcyclist without blinking. "Do you think this is right?" Jackie asked, his voice calm but carrying a natural authority that made the aggressor hesitate for a moment. The motorcyclist blinked, surprised, but quickly disguised it with arrogance. "Who the hell do you think you are?" he retorted, letting out a nervous laugh. "Oh right. The big action movie star has come to teach me a moral lesson. What a joke." Jackie took a step forward, ignoring the provocation. "This isn't about me. It's about you. About what you're doing to them." He gestured towards the homeless man and the dog, now cowering on the ground. "These two shouldn't even be here," shouted the motorcyclist, trying to regain his posture. "They're just taking up space and bothering people." Jackie tilted her head slightly, analyzing the man in front of her. "And you think that hurting someone who can't defend themselves makes you stronger? Or does it just reveal who you really are?" The motorcyclist, visibly annoyed, took a step forward, trying to intimidate him. "Look, I don't need a lecture from an actor. You may be a famous name in the movies, but out here, you're just another guy." Jackie didn't even blink. "And you're just another man overcome by anger. But your anger doesn't justify hurting others." His eyes then moved discreetly to the bottle the biker was holding, partially hidden by his leg. "And it certainly doesn't justify drunk driving." The words fell like a bomb. The motorcyclist hesitated for a second, but then tried to pull himself together. "You don't know anything about me," he shouted, his voice laden with defense. Jackie kept her tone calm. "Maybe I don't. But what everyone here is seeing now already says a lot about you." All around, the people who had previously just watched in silence began to murmur. The social pressure increased, and the motorcyclist realized that the situation was getting out of hand. The tension in the air was palpable. His fists clenched, an internal conflict clear in his expression. He didn't know whether to face Jackie or back away. Before he could make a decision, Jackie took another step forward. Her piercing gaze met her attackers with a firmness that seemed to dismantle any violent intent. "So?" asked Jackie, his voice as firm as a rock. Something was about to happen. Something that would change the course of this story forever. The biker was breathing heavily, his eyes fixed on Jackie, as if trying to decipher the man who dared to challenge him publicly. The tension between the two was almost tangible, the air around them seemed to thicken. The crowd, which was now growing, began to murmur words of support for Jackie. Some pulled out their cell phones, recording the scene. The motorcyclist noticed the cameras pointed at him and gritted his teeth, visibly annoyed. "You think you can humiliate me in front of everyone?" he roared, pointing his finger at Jackie. "You may be a legend in the movies, but that means nothing here." Jackie remained serene, his hands relaxed at his sides. "I'm not trying to humiliate you," he replied. "I'm trying to stop you from doing something you'll regret." The biker let out a dry, sarcastic laugh. "Regret? Talking about regret is easy when you have millions in your account. People like you have no idea what it's like to be in the mud." Jackie tilted her head slightly, without looking away. "The anger you feel has nothing to do with me or him," she said, gesturing towards the homeless man. "It's inside you. And all you're doing now is spreading it to people who don't deserve it." Jackie's words seemed to touch something deep. For a brief moment, the motorcyclist looked away, his posture wavering. But he quickly raised his voice again, trying to regain control of the situation. "You don't know anything about me," he shouted, pointing his finger at Jackie. You think you're a hero for saving beggars and dogs? What a joke. Jackie took another step forward, now just a few meters away from him. His voice dropped a tone, but carried an unwavering firmness. What you do now will define who you are. His gaze pierced the bikers. Hurting someone weaker won't solve the problems you carry. It will only spread more pain, both yours and theirs. The crowd watched in silence. Even the homeless man, who kept his head down, raised his eyes, looking at Jackie Chan as if he saw a glimmer of hope. The motorcyclist looked around, seeing the faces of the people who were silently judging him. His fists clenched tightly, clearly torn between giving in to the pressure or acting on impulse. Then suddenly, he bent down and picked something up off the ground. A bottle. His eyes blazed with fury as he stared at Jackie. The entire parking lot held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The biker clutched the bottle tightly, his fingers trembling. His breathing was heavy, as if he was fighting something inside him. He looked like he was about to explode, but something in his expression revealed hesitation, a trace of doubt amidst his unbridled rage. You think you can take me on? He roared at last, raising the bottle in a threatening gesture. You think you're better than me just because everyone here is on your side. Jackie didn't back down. His gaze remained fixed on the man in front of him. This isn't about who's on whose side, she replied calmly. It's about what's right. And what you're about to do now isn't just wrong. It's dangerous. For you, for them, and for anyone who crosses your path. Jackie's words hit a nerve. The biker clutched the bottle even tighter, but didn't move. The surrounding crowd held their breath, as if time had stopped. You don't know anything about me, shouted the biker again, his voice now almost hoarse. You have no idea what I've been through, what I've lost. So don't tell me what's right or wrong. Jackie took another step forward, reducing the distance between them even more. He could now smell the strong odor of alcohol emanating from the biker. Maybe I don't know, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. But I can see that you're lost. And what you're about to do now won't bring anything back. It's only going to sink you deeper. The biker took a step back, as if Jackie's words had broken through some of the emotional armor he had built up. He looked down at the bottle in his hand, his eyes flickering between anger and confusion. But then, as if trying to reassert his authority, he raised the bottle slightly and faced Jackie with a crooked smile. If you think you can stop me, then try. Before he could act, something unexpected happened. A loud, piercing sound cut through the silence of the parking lot. Avistle. The sound was sharp, almost deafening. Everyone turned in the direction of its origin, but no one could have predicted what was about to happen. It seemed that fate had prepared yet another twist for the scene. The whistle echoed through the parking lot, tearing through the tension of the moment like a spark in the darkness. The motorcyclist, still holding the bottle, turned his head sharply in the direction of the sound, his expression full of irritation. Jackie turned too, quickly analyzing the source of the unexpected interruption. On the other side of the parking lot, an older man approached with firm steps. He wore a faded security uniform, but there was something about his posture that exuded authority. As he got closer, he crossed his arms and surveyed the scene. "Hey, you," said the security guard, his voice deep but controlled. "Put that down now." He pointed at the bottle in the biker's hand. "Who do you think you are?" retorted the motorcyclist, clearly annoyed by the interference. "Go back to your corner, this has nothing to do with you." "Yes, it does," replied the security guard, his tone unwavering. "You're drunk, threatening people and disturbing order. And that's something I'm not going to ignore." The motorcyclist let out a nervous laugh, but there was a trace of discomfort in his posture. He looked around and realized that the crowd was still growing. More and more people were watching the scene, and many held up their cell phones, recording every second. The social pressure was building like a wave about to crash over him. Jackie took advantage of the distraction and stepped forward once more. His calm voice once again caught the motorcyclist's attention. "You can still stop," said Jackie. "Let go of this and leave before things get worse. You have a choice here." The biker clutched the bottle even tighter, his knuckles turning white. His eyes flicked between the security guard, Jackie, and the homeless man, who was now holding the dog tightly. He seemed on the verge of collapse. "This is a joke," he muttered, his voice wavering. "You all think you're better than me. You think you can judge me. But I won't allow it." He raised the bottle slightly, as if trying to prove something to himself and to the others. Before he could move on, something completely unexpected happened. The dog, which until then had remained silent and alert, let out a loud, piercing bark that echoed throughout the parking lot. The sound was so sudden and intense that the motorcyclist froze, his hand in the air. All eyes turned to the dog, now on its feet, staring at the motorcyclist with a courage that seemed much bigger than its small size. The dog had decided that it would not allow any more harm to come to it. And in that instant, the course of history was about to change again. The bark echoed through the parking lot, a brave cry of defiance. Small and vulnerable, but fearless, the mutt stood firm, facing the motorcyclist with unbreakable determination. The aggressor froze for a brief moment, surprised, before narrowing his eyes and letting out a cynical laugh. "A mongrel? You've got to be kidding," he muttered, squeezing the bottle even harder. Jackie took a step forward. "He's not just a dog," she said, her voice firm. "He's a friend. And from the looks of it, he's got more guts than most of us." The crowd began to murmur in support. "Leave them alone." The motorcyclist became visibly restless, looking around at the ever-growing crowd. "You think my life is easy?" he shouted, pouring out his frustration. "This guy shouldn't even be here." Jackie, now closer, spoke calmly. "Maybe this is the only place he has. Maybe all he has is this dog's friendship. But what you're doing won't solve anything. It'll just spread more pain." The biker hesitated. Jackie's words struck a deep chord. Gradually, his fingers relaxed around the bottle, and his shoulders sagged, as if an invisible weight was finally being released. He turned to his bike, pausing for a moment before muttering, "I'm just tired." With that, he climbed onto the vehicle and drove off, leaving behind a quieter crowd, deep in thought. Jackie knelt down beside the homeless man and his faithful companion. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. The man nodded, his eyes watering, and thanked her sincerely. Jackie took a small card out of her pocket and held it out. "Take him to this veterinary clinic. They'll help him, and they can help you too." The man, overcome with emotion, held the card against his chest as if it were a treasure. As Jackie walked away, soft applause began to spread through the crowd. The man hugged his loyal friend, a symbol of hope in the midst of hardship. Sometimes, a simple act of kindness can transform lives. Never underestimate the power of compassion, whether it comes from a stranger or a four-legged friend. This was the heartwarming story of how the courage of a simple dog and the compassion of Jackie Chan transformed a moment of injustice into an example of humanity. But now I want to know, what would you do in Jackie's place? Do you believe that an act of kindness can really change a life? Leave your opinion in the comments. And if this story has touched you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message of hope and empathy. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories that show how small gestures can make a difference in the world. Want to continue being moved? Click on one of the videos that appears on the screen and discover more incredible stories that will warm your heart. See you in the next video.